evening, good evening, and welcome back to another live on a Happy Healthy You Body, Mind, Soul. Here to help you reclaim your health one habit at a time. And thank you for joining in, for those who are joining in, who have already joined in, and if you are catching the replay, thank you for watching. Please let me know where you are viewing from and let me know if you're hearing me clearly. I did have some technical difficulties earlier, so just let me know if you can hear me and see me clearly. All right, so I'm just sharing the live in the group because of how Facebook is set up. So I am streaming on Facebook, on LinkedIn, and on YouTube. So if you want me to see your name and acknowledge you on any one of these platforms, you can just give StreamYard permission, and then I will be able to see and acknowledge you this evening. Also, if you do not give StreamYard permission, I'll just see you as Facebook user, LinkedIn user, or YouTube user, and you can just put your name in the comment section. This evening is quite a sensitive topic, but quite an important one, a profound one that in the last few years, a little bit more light has been shed on, but still there is a lot of misconceptions, a lot of myths, a lot of, I think, misunderstanding about what the topic is about. So this evening, I will, or we will, because I have a guest in studio and I will let her introduce herself soon. And we are going to be speaking about mental health and the importance of mental health. And so I'll just let Mandy quickly just introduce herself and explain just a little about why we're having this conversation.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Dr. King. Uh, First of all, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting me on the show. And to answer your question, oh, and good evening to everybody, your listeners and viewers as well. First of all, the reason why I'm really here is to bring some light, shed some light on the importance of understanding um, what mental illnesses are, how to treat them, how to treat persons who may be suffering from this illness, and the things, the do's and the don'ts that we are to know about. I'm here advocating for one individual in particular, which is my cousin, and she is still under the age of 18, and she has had recent episodes that indicate that she needs some help to recover from what we may call a breakdown.
Yeah. So before we go on to mental health disorders, I just want to give a definition, and this definition I'm taking straight from the WHO, and they have recently updated their definition as of 2024. The definition the last update was 2022, but they have recently updated last year, 2024, and I'm going to read it word for word as it is written on the WHO website about mental health. And before I go there, I've done a lot of presentations on mental health. And I usually start the conversation with when you hear mental health, what comes to mind? Just the first thing. And every single time I have one of these presentations, somebody always say, "You're crazy,"
Yeah,
without a shadow of a doubt. Every single time, I can almost put my head on the block
yeah,
that somebody will say that. And so I want to give my definition first, and I'm going to give WHO's definition. Mental health forms a part of our health, it's a part of who we are. And health in general encompasses physical, mental, and spiritual health. And even though we can say it's separate, they're all intertwined, they're all connected. One has to do with the other. So whether or not you are actively working on your mental health, it will be affected by your physical health, your spiritual health. It will be affected by what you do. And I define mental health as part of your psychological well being. And I also include a social aspect and a financial aspect of mental health. Because if you're stressed about finances, if you don't know where your next meal will be, it will have an effect on mental health. And so we all have mental health. So just to clarify, oh, I'm not mental. Everybody has mental health because we can all understand, we can all process things, we all have relationships with different people, whether it's an intimate relationship, friends, family, co-workers, the man on the street, the neighbor. This is part of our relationships that we have in society, and we all have some sort of income, or we exchange money at some point in time. Now, I want to give you the definition from WHO, and you can go if you want to fact check. As it is written, it says mental health is a state of mental well being that enables people to cope with stresses of life, realize their abilities, learn well and work well, and contribute to their community. So that's quite big. We all want to contribute in society. We all want to feel a part of some sort of group. We, as human beings, we were meant to be in groups. We all want to feel belonged. We all want to feel accepted in whatever group that we are in. We all want to feel like we are part of something, and it's not just ourselves. Right. So just to clarify what mental, we all have mental health because we can all think, we can all process things, we can all, spend money, make money, have relationships. So I want to ask Mandy, why do you think that there is so much stigma when the word mental health comes up? People don't want to talk about it.
That same word that you mentioned, crazy. A lot of people dread that word. Nobody wants to be called crazy. And it's funny because in our society today, we use the word crazy loosely.
Yeah.
And that has to stop. It has been going on for years. It's in movies, it's in music, it's even in the way how you communicate with your friend. Your friend does something and you say, "Oh, you crazy." No, and no, they dread that. And so when we talk about mental health, as soon, I'm sure if the doctor says something to somebody right now about concerning their mental health, the first thing they're not going to want to tell anybody, because they're going to say, "Oh, that person's going to say I'm crazy." And so that word has brought a lot of stigma to what mental health is. Persons who may be undergoing some mental distress or something, they don't want to hear that word. They shun that word. And I believe that is where the stigma is heavily attached.
Yeah. And I think it starts in the home. We have to teach our children, because even when my boys use that word, I was like, no, don't call anybody crazy. Don't call anybody stupid. Don't use these words, because, as you said, it becomes a part of their vocabulary and we use it
Right.
loosely.
Right.
And so,
It's the same. Sorry.
mhm,
It's the same as saying, because for every situation right now, for every theory, phenomenon, whatever, we all have this something called shaming. So for persons who are obese or overweight, it's called fat shaming,
yeah,
right? So if you call somebody, "Oh, you're fat," they say you're fat shaming them, and I think there are consequences for that. I don't know how far it goes, but if you're in a place of employment and you refer to somebody as being fat, you can actually be disciplined for that. Same thing with sexual preference. If somebody is, a part of the G, what I mean, LGBT group, and you refer to them in a derogative way about their sexual preference, again, you can be disciplined for that. But you don't really hear much people or much organizations really rooting for if you refer to somebody who may be or may not be suffering from a mental illness. If you decide to call them crazy in the workplace, they don't really say anything about that. It just, it's brushed under the carpet.
Yeah. And then it becomes more, oh, I'm just joking kind of thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
behind the person's back, you're making comments.
Mm-hmm.
I like to give this story of, I remember this gentleman who was in and out of the hospital, but his co-workers didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
And he kept handing in sick leaves, and people are, just speculating, oh, what happened to him? Oh, he lazy, he this and he that. And then they came to find out that he had a terminal illness.
Mm-hmm.
And then now everybody's crying. And my thing is that you don't have to know the person's situation, but you can at least inquire, are you okay? Do you need some help? So that the person can get the help that they need, because that is usually the problem, is that persons don't seek the help in time, and so it gets worse. And then
Yeah,
it only persons will only say, oh, but it's long time, long time they're behaving this way, and you know it, and you saw it, and you commented about it behind the person's back, instead of approaching them and finding out, or somebody who is close to them, let them approach them and find out, if everything is okay.
yeah.
We don't do that when it comes to mental health.
And show some
Sure.
empathy, you know.
Yes, empathy.
Mm-hmm.
When I was doing some research on mental health disorders, and I like to say that we all have something, and we tip into having mental health into a disorder when it becomes unbalanced. So if we go back to the WHO definition, it speaks about coping with stresses of life and being able to resolve these stresses. We all have stresses, and when we are not able to cope well with the stress, this is where we tip
Correct.
into having a mental health disorder. Well, at the top of the list, if you do your research, the number one mental health disorder is anxiety. Anxiety. And this could be from, mild anxiety, just feeling a little nervous, to a full blown panic attack.
Right.
And 80%, these are statistics from America because we don't really have much data in the Caribbean, but it is said that 80% of adults in America has some level of anxiety. That's a big, big
Yes, yes.
portion.
It goes from even as much as taking the mic in church just to say a verse in the Bible, and your hands start to shake, you get sweaty palms, and you're supposed to be speaking up, but your voice goes so low, because that is it right there. You're already
Yes,
in panic mode. The anxiety
yes,
is flaring up.
yes, yes. And guess what number two is right after anxiety?
Worry,
Depression.
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 Mm,
Depression. And so we have to be very cautious when we say things. Um, in a workplace that I am in, we have been asked to do presentations, and I thought that it was a little unfair to just ask people to do presentations, and they have not been trained to do presentations, because, as you said, just to speak up in church, people have stage fright, they might have panic attacks, they have anxiety, and you don't know, like what their level of anxiety may be, and asking them to do a presentation, asking them to speak in church might cause some overwhelming anxiety for them, uh,
right.
that may cause a problem. Now, one of the things that I like to speak about is trying to deal with issues without medication. Now, medication, I'm not against medication, one, because medication plays a role. But I always say, even if you are on medication, there are things that you still have to do. It's not just about taking a pill. For instance, if you're diabetic, you can't just be taking the pill, shooting the insulin, and not changing the way you eat, not managing your stress, not dealing with, weight, if weight is an issue. And it's the same thing with mental health disorders. So if you have been diagnosed with a mental health disorder, or even if you have not been diagnosed, because we all have some level of anxiety, we all have something that may happen to us. And even if you're on medications or not, you still have to incorporate what we call lifestyle changes. And I don't think people realize how important that is.
Hmm.
Now, let's speak about why is it important to work on our mental health. We're speaking about mental health. Why should we be working on our mental health, Mandy?
Because without your mental health at optimal stage, you can't function. You cannot. Communication between yourself and others is going to be very hard to do. I can tell you about my journey. Um, so after having my second daughter, I developed high BP, which is high blood pressure. But I didn't realize that my lifestyle was actually the primary cause of it. I felt normal, everything, I was good. And then, on my checkup at the doctor, which is Dr. Ramsey at the time, who's deceased now, he said to me, yeah, that blood pressure needs to come down. I took the medication, and as you know, I didn't like medications. I didn't want to take it. So I got it from the pharmacy, but I didn't want to take it. Then I eventually started to take it, not understanding that I could become highly dependent on this medication. I took it, wasn't changing my lifestyle, and that included worrying, same thing, anxiety, finances at the time were a mess. I'm looking after a newborn baby. It was a lot. I was a single parent at the time. But there was something different that was happening, and I didn't realize it. And I believe Dr. Ramsey saw it. You see, he had the window view of me. I couldn't see myself. So he said to me, "You're going to need counseling." And I'm like, "What? I don't need counseling. I'm fine." He said, "Yes, you do. And I'm going to give you these, another set of pills." And I'm like, "No, I'm already on pressure pills. I'm fine." He said, "Take them." Let me tell you, right? When I took the pill the first time, I said, okay, I now see why he gave me these. My calmness was gone for a while, and I didn't realize that until I took the medication. Let me just say that I'm off of that medication today, thank God. I'm not on it. But at the time, I was not calm. I was very anxious. I was worked up. I was in a flare up, and he probably saw that, and that contributed to the blood pressure elevating. So I took it, and then I sat and I noticed how calm I was. I noticed that the things I was fretting up about, I wasn't fretting about them anymore. I noticed that I wasn't even loving myself. And so I started to look into myself and love myself, to appreciate my solitude, stuff like that, to go to sleep early, to drink more water, to watch what I'm eating. But most importantly, I became, I promised myself my mental health is very important to me. And I believe that's when I really started to understand how important mental health is. Because if you're not mentally stable, it can drive your blood pressure up. It can drive sugar up. It can mess with you in so many ways. I could be speaking here to you about an argument, Saran, but because I'm not mentally, in the right state, I'm gonna take it and blow it out of proportion. When you are at a stage where you're mentally, fit and everything, we will work that out amicably, just in a good state. So after taking the pills, I realized, okay, I really needed this. I attended counseling, and eventually it did take me some time, but eventually I weaned myself off of it. So mental health is very important. Without it, I mean, you will be doing things, probably don't even know you're doing them. You're just not going to be able to function as you should in society.
Yeah. And I want to just amplify what you just said at the end, that it took some time. There's no quick fix.
Oh,
There's no quick fix if you're trying to, unless you have like a crisis that needs to be hospitalized. There's no quick fix in terms of changing your habits,
mhm.
changing your lifestyle. You can't be doing one thing for 30 years and then expect the next day that you will be have a whole 360. And
Yeah.
I like to advise my clients is that to start with one thing at a time. So you mentioned about drinking more water, you mentioned about loving yourself more, about, getting more sleep. Just do one thing at a time, because what end up happening is that we want to do everything at the
Yeah.
same time and we become overwhelmed, and then of course it's going to affect your mental health, and you throw in the towel and you say it's not working, but you haven't given yourself the time and the grace and the patience and the support that you rightfully need.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
sometimes it takes an outside person, just like it took Dr. Ramsey to see what is happening, because you couldn't see for yourself that you needed that counseling, that you needed something for your anxiety, that you needed medication for your blood pressure.
Yeah.
Sometimes you need to have that outside. Sometimes it's just a friend who might be very observant and say, maybe you need to get this checked out,
Right.
because, something seems a little off with you. So now I want to speak a little bit more about, you said you are advocating for a particular individual. Without going into detail, I just want you to speak more about why you think it's important for you to advocate for this family member.
I believe that it is it's time for me to speak out, because even with my personal experience, okay, it's over your shoulder now, and yeah, you go along doing your business as usual, living life as usual. But after this incident occurred, one, she's young, most vulnerable right now, and the way in which this entire situation played out, I could not sit back and see it happen and not say anything. And a lot of people would say, oh, keep it quiet, whatever, for whatever reason, because nobody want to know that, oh, you're related to, and I'm being real, nobody wants to know that, no, people to know that they're related to this person. I'm not for that, Saran. I'm very real, right? And I could not care who wants to say, oh, they're related or whatever. It's to the point where I have to stand up and advocate for her, because she cannot advocate for herself right now. I love her dearly. Like I said, if she was supposed to be a millionaire today, or she's still in this situation where she needs help, I'm still going to love her. I'm still going to advocate for her. This is the right time for me as well to bring to the forefront and to the public the importance of mental health and the importance of advocating for your family, for your friends, your coworker, your loved one who may be suffering from some type of mental breakdown, right? And so that's why I'm advocating for her. I'm doing this in hopes of her getting better. I'm doing this in hopes of people be getting aware of what mental health is, to remove the shame, because a lot of times we see people on the street walking, they're eating, out of dirty bins, and they're looking unkept. And the first question we ask is, they don't have any family? And sometimes the family pass them straight. You know, yes, I know of situations where families are actually collecting benefits for people who are in that state. That's the truth. But I'm saying it's time for that to stop. Advocate for your families. I know they say that it's a process where sometimes the person may return to their habit, the person may return to that state which they're in. But I don't find, as family members, we stand up enough for persons who are um, going through something like that. And so that is why I'm here, talking, voicing, how I feel about the entire situation and the way in which the situation played out as well. It showed that our society really needs to be sensitized about the importance of helping people who may be mentally distressed at the time and how to go about it.
Yeah. And I think it starts with education. People are just not aware.
Yeah. Yeah.
um, I have a medical degree and I work at a rehab center. But prior to working there, I can tell you I didn't have any much knowledge about addiction. It was working there and understanding, what addiction is. So it's the same with mental health. People are not aware of
Mm-hmm.
what it is, what to look for, what to do. And so they need to do their due diligence and educate themselves. Okay, so what's happening? What are the terms that are being used, rather than just calling people crazy loosely? And it could just be that the person just had a mental breakdown, and it can happen to anybody. You
Yes.
know, you lose your job, you lose a family member, you know, I guess you know by now there was a situation here where a young child lost their life, and
Unfortunately.
I'm saying that mother needs to be on suicide watch,
Yes.
because it's a lot. You
Mm-hmm.
know,
That's
just losing somebody at any age is painful, but
yes.
when it's such a young person, and the way the situation, the way it happened, you know,
Mm-hmm.
it's going to be a lot on that individual, and that person is going to need some intense counseling, because that's going to take her throughout her entire life.
Yes.
And if she doesn't have the support that she needs, then it could take her over the edge as well.
Right.
Let me just acknowledge those who are in the comment section. Good evening, Nurse Dover. I see you. Doc, Doc, good evening. Hi, Keen. Therese, I see you made it. Thank you for joining in. Feel free to ask Mandy any questions, or if you want to chime in and make your own comments from your own personal story. I just want to add about, from my personal experience, what Mandy was mentioning about just having a baby. And one of those other taboo things that we don't talk about is postpartum depression.
Yeah.
And sometimes I think people are so insensitive. Oh, you know, you'll get over it, kind of thing. And oh, you know, my I had 7 children. Sometimes it's women. I can tell you, where after I had my children, and actually when I was pregnant with my both of my sons, all of the negative comments that I got were from women.
Yes.
Every single one of them, and some of
Yes.
them were mothers as well.
Yes.
And you know, we're supposed to be supporting each other. And
Mm-hmm.
so we have to do a better job with helping each other when you see somebody's in distress. If you don't know what to do, like for instance, today I went to a funeral, and I never know what to do when somebody loses a family member. Like, I would just be there. I would just be present. I don't say anything. I would just give them a hug.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what to say, because there's nothing I can say that can bring the person back, that will take away the pain. And so I'm just there. Maybe other people know what to say. I don't know what to say. So, you know, we just have to know our limits, and just be there. Sometimes people just want to know that they have that support, and they don't want any advice. They probably already know. If somebody's overweight, they already know they need to lose weight.
Well, you know, that because I actually believe that staying silent in that situation is the best option, because at least they can't say you said something that offended them. So it's
Yeah.
always the better option to stay silent, but you're there, and you being there shows support. Like it's like going to the hospital and somebody's in the bed. When I go, I don't know if to say you're okay, because obviously if they were, they wouldn't
Yeah.
be in the bed.
Yeah.
So I'd be just like, I'm just here to support you. You see me here. I came to visit you, to look for you. So you did do the best thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even a few months ago, I had another friend who had to go to court for the first time, and she never been to court before. And so I just went, and she's like, after the next day, she's like, "Oh, thanks for coming. I didn't even know that I needed somebody there, but you
Mhm.
were there, and I'm so happy that you were there." And we didn't do anything but just sit and chat and laugh, you know. And so
Mhm.
sometimes, as you said, it's good to be silent, and it's good to just be there, so the person know they're not alone. I think
Right.
that's one of the things that, when people are going through things, they think that they're the only ones. Like,
Yeah.
there's nobody else. They can't connect with anybody else. They may not know anybody else who are going through similar situation, but because they're not speaking out. And I used to have a life coach for a few years, and one of the things that she always says is, expression is the opposite of depression. And so, if something is happening, we need to express ourselves in whatever way, whether it is talking, dance. And I did a little research. I hope you don't mind. I did a little research on your family member, and I didn't realize she was so artistic. She has won art competitions. The girl is brilliant.
And
I
a lot of,
saw, yeah,
sorry, a lot of people may not realize it, but she is very young to be an Antigua State College student.
yes, yes.
She's very
And
young.
you said she's 16, right?
Yeah, she's not even 18 yet, and she's in
Right.
college,
Yeah.
right? So that too could have contributed to, the pressures because I always tell people as a teenager has a lot on them. We may not see it because we think, oh, you're young, you're vibrant, take it in now. But they have a lot going on, especially if there's childhood trauma. And 2 years ago, she lost her father. Her father was a very supportive individual in her family. And we can imagine what it's like losing a family member. I always tell people, especially a parent, when I lost my father, I felt like I was a table without one of the legs. That's how you
Mhm.
feel. You feel unstable. That support as a table or chair, you're
Right.
standing on all fours. But when you lose one of that leg, you feel unstable. You actually feel unbalanced. And so, some sort of empathy should have been lent, to her, understanding that, listen, this young lady doesn't have a father anymore in the picture. And so that too, I believe, contributed to the entire breakdown. Plus, you're in college, you have so many things to do in terms of your academics. That's another pressure. Then you're going through your hormonal change because that's
Mhm.
another thing. Mental health can be affected by age.
Mhm.
Karen, some people are good right now. They're good. Nothing, they appear good. Nothing is bothering them. But as you age, as you enter into menopause, as you enter into puberty, things happen. There are other things that affect you mentally and even some experiences. You may get into an accident, and from that, you just change because of what happened. Maybe lost a friend in the accident. Since that, you've been different. So yeah, but she's a very intelligent person. She's a smart
Yeah.
girl, well spoken, you know, in her days of, her normalcy. She would crack a joke, you have to laugh. She could sing. A beautiful young lady.
Yes. I know she can sing. I've heard her sing. I've
Mm-hmm.
heard her sing,
And she
and
could play.
I've played the guitar very, very well. Beautiful, really beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And they have the young people now have an added stress that we never had, which is the cyberbullying.
Yes.
And I learned a word this week. I never heard it, smidging or something like that. Smidging.
Oh, I'm not familiar
Um,
with that.
it's a form of cyberbullying, but they target teenagers, and they encourage them to hurt themselves or to do something bad or something wrong. And I was like, wow, I've never heard this word in my entire life.
Different
And now
level.
these young people have to deal with all of this cyber bullying and cyber attack, and I'm like, there's so much, as you said, pressure that placed on them. And then now, the academics, and they are pressured into doing all these subjects for CXC, which I don't agree with, like the 20 something subjects. They're pressured into, excelling in specific areas. Meanwhile, the social aspect is not being properly managed. And so it takes a village. It really does take a village. It can't be one person. It has to be the home life, school life, church. We need to get back into really praying every day when I wake up. That's the first thing. And I think I mentioned this in one of the lives. When I was younger, I used to hear the older folks say, Lord, thank you for waking me up in my right mind. I was like,
Yes.
what does that even mean? Like,
We know now, right?
and now we understand it.
Mhm.
How important that is to wake up, one, and to wake up in your right mind.
Yes. Yes.
And we take that for granted,
Mhm.
that, you know, everybody wakes up in their right mind, and they don't, because a lot is going on. During the pandemic, there was so much mental health issues. People were relapsing, from addiction issues, and people don't realize that eating disorders is actually a mental health disorder as well. So, the anorexia and the bulimia, and
Mhm.
the overeating, the stress eating, and we all stress eat at some point.
Yes.
We all have some kind of emotional eating, because food is just a part of, you're going to a wedding, you're going to a funeral, you're celebrating, you're mourning, you're upset, you're happy, you're excited. Food is something that brings everybody together. And
Right.
sometimes it can be used in an unhealthy way as well.
Mm-hmm.
I want to segue now into some of the tools, and you did mention a few already, that we can use to help to work on our mental health. And I'm going to start with the top one, which is support. Having the right support. With anything that we're going through, we have to have support. If we don't have that, it's going to be a harder journey. It's already a hard journey with support. And I was on Therese live sometime last year, I think, and we were talking about dementia. And if you don't know, my mom has dementia, and I have a lot of support, and I sometimes it gets overwhelming. And there was a young lady who said she didn't have any support, and I did not expect to cry, but I cried, because I can't imagine not
But it,
having support, because I have it, and it's still so hard, and it's still overwhelming, and it still becomes stressful at times. And so when you don't have that support, and especially persons who are seen as the strong ones,
mm-hmm.
sometimes we figure, oh, they're okay. Everything is okay with them, and we don't look to those persons who are usually giving the support to lend them support as well.
Mm-hmm.
But what other things do you do for your personal life to help to improve your mental health?
Right. So, remember when I was telling you about that time when I went through my experience, it's pretty much postpartum depression that I had. It's clear to me now that's what it was. And some of the things, well, the first thing I did was, of course, Dr. Ryan helped me out with the pill, using that. It's more like a relaxant, if you want to call it that, something to make you relax.
Mm,
But then I promised myself that I would not be dependent on those pills. And so I started to take counseling, but then I had like panic attacks. And there was a time when I went to the hospital, and when I went there was a nurse. Unfortunately, I can't remember her name right now, but she gave me a book called Battlefield of the Mind by
mm.
Joyce Meyer. And
Yes, I
I
have
read
that
that
book.
book. Huh?
I have that book. I have that book.
Yeah, man, I read that book, and let me tell you, when I read Battlefield of the Mind, that opened so much knowledge to me. Became I just became glued to the book. So I read the book, and then I started to understand a lot of the things that were happening to me. Like my mind was pretty much running away with me, Saran. And it was about the baby, especially. Like if she couldn't poop properly, I'm panicking. There's something that mothers go through at that time. I'm panicking, I gotta take her to the hospital. I'm not sleeping because she's up in the night and I have to breastfeed and everything. So that too took a toll on me. So I started with Battlefield of the Mind. This was not something that I volunteered to do, but like I said, the nurse gave me the book and I read it, and I started to, understand what's going on with the mind and how to train my mind and stuff like that. After I was weaned off of the pills independently and so forth, I started to go back to the gym, to exercise, take off that baby weight and stuff like that. But then a few years later on, like I said, it's something that gradually, now and again it comes and it goes. If somebody brings bad news to you and you can't cope with it, the stress is too much, you may return to that state. So eventually, what I started to do is write, journal. And I remember meeting you and buying your journal, the books. And so I started to read and to write how I feel. By writing how I feel, that really, really helped. Like a lot of the things that I couldn't express to people, I would sit down every morning and I would write. I would play some music that goes with that tone and everything, and I would write, and that would help me. Then I tapped into meditation and tapped into saying my affirmations to reassure myself that I am beautiful, that I deserve the best and stuff like that. Those things calm. Then eventually I went into breathing exercises. And so I just started to treat myself. I started to treat myself with everything that I needed to maintain my health and my well-being and so forth. So those are some of the things I did, apart from changing my diet. And then I learned how to deal with stress. I try my best to learn how to deal with coping with stress.
I swear Mandy was copying from my book, because everything that she mentioned is what I have written in my book. Every single thing. Counseling, mindful meditation, I'm going to read them out. Journaling, staying physically active, support, expressing yourself. Everything that you mentioned, I have written. And
I still have one more.
And you still have one more.
Yeah.
What's the one more?
And this one, to me, this is a very big one. And it's something that is hard to do, Saran. But I guarantee when you do it, everything is lifted off of you. I started to forgive because I was holding on.
Letting go.
Yeah, I had to let go. And I was holding on to so much because, like I said, I'm not going to go right into the details, but I was a single parent. So you know what that means, right? And so I held on to that animosity. I had malice within me. And I remember going to church and also speaking to my counselor. And I remember being told, you have to let go. You can't. And I'm saying, yeah, but the person did this and the person did that. And they're saying, yes, but it's not going to help you. Let go. And I'm like, do you even know the gravity?
But you don't know my situation. You don't know what they did.
To let go, but I tell you much. When I let it go, not only mentally, but I physically felt there was a bulge. There was a bulge here, right here. I physically felt it, just like it's like something like burping, but it's done. I don't know if it's spiritually or what, but I felt a weight just let off of me. And I said, girl, I did like breathe off, and I said, yes, you've been carrying all that weight within you for so long. That's what I said to myself. I said, wow. So forgiveness plays a very, very big role. And so when I saw the individual on the next time, because usually when I see the person, I'm like, oh,
angry.
That, and I'm filled with all this anger, and if I could just, but then the next time I saw them, they said something to me, and I said, okay, you do your thing and I'll do mine. And I could see on their face, they're like, what? That's not like her. But I had achieved that level of forgiveness, that level of self-love, that level of managing with even seeing a face that I know would usually stress me out. I just dealt with it with serenity, with calm, with peace, recovery from there.
That's another thing I used to hear years ago. Forgiveness is for you. And I was like, yeah. I don't want to forgive the person. But you're holding on to that, and it's eating away at you mentally and physically.
Yeah.
Because you can get stress ulcers, you can get tension, headaches, your blood pressure can go up because you're holding on to this anger, and you're holding on to this animosity, as you mentioned. And I just dropped in the comments, because you mentioned about affirmation cards, a link for affirmation cards if anybody's interested, that they can download. That's one of the things that I do. But at the top of my list is support, exercising. And I want to amplify a little bit more about exercising. It's not just to get washboard abs and to get nicely toned, which is great as well. But getting physically active it actually secretes hormones in your body. And
Yes.
some these hormones, we call them happy hormones. So you have your serotonin, your oxytocin, your adrenaline. They are hormones that physically changes your mood. So if you're feeling angry, go and take a brisk walk for 20 minutes to get those hormones secreting, and it will calm your body down. It's not what I'm saying. This is what actually happens in your body. And you can do your own research on that as well. Your physical activity improves your mental health as well,
Yes.
because in the moment, and again, time, sometimes you just need time away. I'm an advocate for alone time, because sometimes we're so busy with the noise and the children and work and relationships, that we don't spend enough time alone in solitude. And one of the books that I like, that has brought that solitude for me, and it's a very short book. It's called The Art of Stillness:
Mm.
Adventures in Going Nowhere by Pico Layer. I hope I didn't butcher his name, but it's a short book and it speaks about doing less, stop being so busy, and really slowing down and appreciating the moment of where we're in. Sometimes we're so busy. I do it too. You're rushing to get the children ready in the morning, you're rushing to go and see a client, you're rushing to do this, you have a deadline, an email, this, that, and you're going, that you don't stop to really live in the moment, to really appreciate what's happening, that you can actually see, that you can actually walk, that you can actually feel. When my son likes to tell me, "Oh, mommy, I hurt my leg," I say, "Well, thank God you can feel," because if you couldn't, it would be another problem. And so, feeling pain is alerting you that something happened. And
Yes.
so you better be thankful that you can actually feel, because if you couldn't feel, then it's another issue. And
Mhm.
so we have to learn to live in the moment and really appreciate what is happening, while we can appreciate what's happening and work on something at the same time. What they say, we can be a work in progress and
Yes.
a masterpiece at the same time. So we don't have to accept what is. So if there's something that you don't like, you can improve it, but you can still appreciate what's happening with you in the moment.
Mhm.
Um, I also have a lot of journals on my. I'm gonna just drop the link for the PayHip store where you can browse. They are paid products and they're also free. A lot of free resources on their journals. There's a gratitude journal, a reflection journal. I want to share that one. That is a free download that you can get on the PayHip store. And I want to really reiterate how important it is to journal,
Mhm.
especially when you can't trust anybody. Yeah,
Right.
there's nobody that you can confide in. Journal. Even if you have to tear it up afterwards, it's just like getting that out of your head, getting that information out of your head and on paper. And it looks different when you put it on paper. I've been journaling for at least 10 years. I still have all of my journals. And sometimes I look in the journal and laugh at myself. I was like, wow, this was bothering you? Like, why? Like, the kind of thing.
I'm glad you brought that up because I was just about to say one of the good things about journaling is the ability to go back and reflect on what you wrote. I mean, some of the things that I wrote were actually about my surroundings, waking up in the morning. And so when I go back and I read that, I actually can visualize my environment back then, my home back then. And it's a beautiful, I'm like, girl, you should write this story and sell it because it's so nice. And then some of the things I've written in that journal were actually experiences that I was going through and I needed to get over it. And the only way one of the ways that I dealt with that was by journaling it. And I look back now and I'm like, that is so behind me. You know,
Mhm.
just like you said, that you were actually stressing about that. I'm like, that is so behind me. The dates play a significant part because I may open the journal and when I look at the date, I'm like, but wait, that's the same day. So yeah, so I'm like, this it's the same day that I wrote in this journal. Wow, 2 years have passed already, and I'm amazed. So journaling is very, very good. Another thing I do as well, Saran, is grounding. I take my shoe off and I go outside and I actually stand up. For those of you who can do it, I stand up and I actually absorb the energy that's coming out of the ground, and it does work. It really does work.
Yep. Nature is so powerful. I love going to the beach and just listening to the waves. I don't know what it is, but it just has a calming effect.
Yes.
Like just putting your feet in the sand and just listening to the waves, feeling the water on your toes. There's just something calming, just doing a nature walk. As Mandy said, removing your shoes and putting your physical foot on the ground. There's something healing. I don't know if it's healing energy from the earth that goes in your body, but there's just something profound that happens. Maybe that's why my children are so grounded. They're always barefoot outside.
That's so energetic, and that's why they are how they are, because they are absorbing it. Because they don't like shoes. I mean, we put them on, but the chance they take them off and they run around in the grass, and that's why they are how they are. But as we age and so forth, we're wearing shoes. We don't get that. As when I take my shoe off and I ground, I feel it. I feel the immense feeling almost immediately, if not immediately, as I place my feet on the ground. You actually feel it coming up through your knees, So yeah.
Yeah. So we're approaching the 1 hour mark, and I just want to recap and some takeaways. What if somebody's just now tuning in? What is the one thing that you would want to say to them? Or if somebody is having and going through an issue right now, what would you say to them?
Well, on the side of somebody who is being affected, if you as an individual detect that you're a bit more, you're feeling a bit more down, more depressed, things are not going how it's not you don't feel like your usual self. Do not let stigma prevent you from seeking help. Yes, it's hard for you to find in somebody, but if you have to go to a professional to get help, to get a diagnosis, do what you can for yourself. Another thing is sometimes we are going through something and we are in denial, and sometimes even members may be in denial because you see your family not acting normal. 3 days now, she's just coming out, eating, going back in the bed. That's not like her. She's usually up and about, bouncing around. Don't be in denial and say, oh, she'll get through it. She and the boy left, so she probably taking it on. And another thing is try not to rough them up, because sometimes we say, hey, get about the bed, man, what happened to you? Take on, just be empathetic, understand what the person is going through. And that's one of the reasons why sometimes people don't want to talk, because how you may react, so they try to put on that tough exterior and pretend like everything is okay, but deep inside they are hurting, right? So that vantage point, get yourself the help that you need. Don't let stigma of people saying you're crazy and stuff like that prevent you from looking about yourself, because at the end of the day, your mental health is probably one of the highest part of the wealth that you have. Without that, you cannot function. Without that, you need that to function. You need that to know, I can do my daily task and my chores without being interrupted. From the other side, seeing somebody who is in a mental distressed state, I would tell you to this amount of laughing that we do at certain things and taking out the phone and recording and so forth. We record everything. That has got to stop. It may be hard because this is not only a thing that happens in our country or regionally, but it happens globally. And for one example I can bring to you quickly is when there's a queen on the stage and she's about to make a speech, it's a question and answer segment, and she fumbles. And there's everybody down there in the crowd. Ha ha ha. She can't talk. Let me tell you, Saran, it takes a lot. It
Yep.
takes a lot for somebody to go up there and take the mic. And people even
Mhm.
say, if it was them, they would have done better. But
Mm.
the mic and say, okay, you answer. I'm pretty sure they would
They will
fumble.
fumble too.
Yeah, because she who has been training for months,
Yeah.
starts to stutter.
It's, it takes a lot of guts
It
and
takes a lot of guts.
courage.
So let us be more empathetic. Let us be more understanding with regards to people who are mentally distressed, people who are nervous, people who are going through anxiety. Let us be a bit more sensitive, understanding, and supportive to them instead of bashing them, instead of, laughing and taking everything for a mockery and for a joke. You know what I'm saying? Because it is serious. And I just pray that as we go forward, this stigma that's attached to the most important, mental health, is removed, little by little, that little initiatives can be done, workshops, public service announcements can be done to advocate for persons who are suffering from mental health
Yes.
issues and
and,
disorders.
and educate. We have to also educate ourselves. If you don't know, usually the reason why people react this way because they just don't know about the situation. So they
Mm-hmm.
just see somebody might be walking naked, they might be behaving in irrational manner, and we just stigmatize them, not realizing that something tragic may have happened. Maybe they're not even having a mental health this breakdown, but
Right,
something tragic just happened that just pushed them over the edge. They may
right,
not have an actual diagnosis, because if you get bad news in the moment, your blood pressure can go up, but you're not hypertensive.
right.
You can go off the deep end, but you don't have a mental health disorder. But in that moment, the stress was just too much for you to cope.
Yeah.
And as we work on our mental health by journaling, by getting support, by doing the things that we need to do to make our bodies healthier, watching our weight, what we eat. Sometimes some of the foods that we eat may be causing anxiety. Some of
Mm-hmm.
the things that we're watching, some of the things that we're listening to, some of the music. I listen to some. I remember when I was younger, not to start another story, but I remember mommy used to always say, "Oh, these young people with their raga raga music," and now I'm one of those saying, "These young people with this raga raga music, I
Oh,
can't understand
but
what is being played."
raga music has gone to another level,
Yes,
honestly. Yes,
yes,
another.
it's gone beyond, and now everybody's so sensitive. You can't say anything unless you're discriminating. But the things that we take in, whether it's physically or mentally, from the conversations we have, the music we listen to, the people we surround ourselves with, it
Yeah.
has an effect on our mental well-being. And so we have to be very careful with who we are allowing into our space
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and what we are allowing.
You're booked for time, so I'm just gonna say quickly as well that I'm encouraging individuals as well to understand that this um, thing that we call mental health is not just persons who are eating out of a garbage bin or seem to
Mhm.
be who are homeless, who
Yep.
are affected by it, that we think, oh, because a lot of times that's what we think. We think, okay, you have to be homeless, you have to be walking on the road looking, unkept and so forth for you to be mentally ill. But there are people who are in high positions, people who are functioning normally in their workplace, in the family, who may have a disorder,
Yep.
right? And so we have to be aware of that. It affects everybody. Like you said, we all have mental health. Sometimes it's at its optimal stage, and sometimes it can get very extreme in terms of suffering from disorders. And so we need to understand that, that stereotype as well has to be removed. Persons can be, looking normal, but they're suffering from anxiety, they're suffering from depression and so forth. And we have to look out for the signs.
Yes. Yes, we do. So
Mhm.
thank you, Mandy, for sharing your time and sharing your story. and doing your part to help break the stigma with mental health. If anybody's interested, the journal that Mandy was speaking about is this journal here that I think I go through like 3 of them every year because I write every day and I use a whole page every single day. Um, but you don't have to get my journal. You can get any journal, any book. I have lots of journals, even those that are not mine. But start to express yourself in whatever way that is for you. Get the help, get the support. Don't be don't allow the stigma to stop you from
Right.
seeking the help that you may need. And
Right.
if you don't know where to get the help, you can reach out to me and I can advise you in terms of where you can go. We do have Therese was on here earlier. She is a therapist and I think she has a doctorate level now, so I should be calling her Dr. Therese. And she is located in New York, I believe. And so if you're in that area and you're watching and you need some help, or you can reach out to me on any one of the pages on Facebook, on Instagram, on YouTube, A Happy Healthy You, Body, Mind, Soul. This conversation has been really enriching, really powerful, really impactful. And so I want to thank Mandy again. I don't know if she has any other parting words or if we'll just leave it at that. And I am keeping her and her family members in my prayers. And
Yeah.
please do the same for her and her family members. And let's do our part to help each other.
Yes. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you again to everybody and stay happy, stay healthy.
Okay. Bye. Have a good night.
All right, good night.
Mhm.